different sizes. There's an elementary size, which is what we are here really, and then the middle school, junior high size gym, and then high school. This is the junior high regulation gym. So we could make it just a little bit smaller, and it would still be regulation for middle school games, and then the bleachers wouldn't come out onto the floor. I think that's why they come out now, is the people that built the bleachers didn't understand how big the gym court was going to be.
Gotcha.
So there's a little disconnect. That's just a guess on my part.
So if we put the locker rooms here, are we going to have any games over the community center? Are we ever going to have to use the community center if
That
the
is
locker rooms here?
not up for me to decide. I'm sure that will be part of the discussion.
Our athletic ADs will probably weigh in on that.
Well, at this point, this gym is used every night.
Yes,
If
we
it's not
run.
being used for a game, it's being used for practices for the team. So it's
Right.
kind of where it's best to put the people.
This gym is used constantly. I even had a gentleman come in and ask for gym space, and we're booked solid all the time. You have to schedule it weeks in advance. All our gyms in the district are booked solid.
A practice, an event, a game,
Even with like girls basketball ending, still
there'll be something in there.
Still fully
There'll
booked?
be like a volleyball from the community volleyball team. My daughter practices in there. The community AAU teams, the wrestling teams. There's a team in there, they can't wait. AAU basketball for the younger kids. Like Allie Groth is using Pinehurst Gym, but she can't wait to get into the bigger gym and town.
So they're not school sports technically that are affiliated with the middle school or the high school, but they're sports that
Community
the kids are involved in. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all school district kids, most likely. Every kid that uses those gyms is part of our affiliation with our school. Eventually play our
That's all
They looked at that during the building consolidation too. And they said even if they close the building, they still need the gym because we use it. We use all the gyms year round.
And that was the agreement when they did shift buildings.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful you were there at almost every one of those meetings. That core of that building would still be used for athletic activities and school sponsored. Trying to shift it to a community building.
And Josh, you asked about people who might be paying for that. They do have to have liability insurance. We do have a fee schedule, but it also says on the fee schedule that any students who are using it for kid purposes, we're probably not going to charge them. And it's up to the superintendent, and I can't see any benefit in charging those groups. As long as they have liability insurance and they take care of it, it's good with us.
Sometimes they have cleanup.
Yeah,
costs, right?
yes.
Tim, are these designed to have covers on those lights, or because of the new lights, they'll...
They do have there's lenses on those.
yeah.
New LED fixtures. Lamps.
There's such better lights than the ones that were.
It's not yellow.
They screwed up inside and outside. They put the washing yellow.
Basketball. Oh, it felt like you were glowing in the dark.
You start singing it.
Really?
You can sing for us.
Percussion. Percussion.
Actually, I our confidence all the time when we bus long-term it
You would have to do like similar to what they do with like Broadway stuff, where part of the band is almost like on the ground, which would actually be kind of cool, I think, visually.
This is our band room. We're lucky we do have a stage. Right now we still do all our performances at the community center, but depending on what the decision is made there, we could use this for that purpose. With the plans, if we do build another classroom band, we'll go out to that classroom. This would become the choir room, and then we'll see the choir room in just a minute. It's in an old kindergarten classroom. That would become our intervention area. We do have an amazing tech department. They redid our whole sound system, so this is a very high quality sound system. We're fortunate to have that.
So Jan, I know we get asked the question a lot as to why all the concerts are over in that building.
It's a preference of the instructors at this time. As long as we can use that facility, they'd like to use it, but they do know long term the plan would be to use this facility.
Do you use all the spaces here? I noticed like your capacity is like 500 and I think you only have, what, 370 or something?
No, we have 260, I believe, of last week. But every room is used. The one room that we talked about earlier that is the art, science, and math room, it's open 3 periods a day. But all other classrooms. The other area that we'll talk about is the choir room, and it's set up with the risers. That's used 3 periods a day. We run drama through there too. And then this classroom is used 2 periods a day at the end of the day.
I think this school that was built was designed for 386, I think was total, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in fact, that was one of the things, you know, when this school was, when we closed this, and all the kids went to Pinehurst, that was one, there were several reasons why we did that. One was, this school would not hold all the kids that Pinehurst had out there now. I mean, there's 450 kids or 452 kids out in Pinehurst. And that's near its capacity right now. I mean, you know, the way that programs that are offered, with you have your labs and all that stuff, would take up classrooms. So it shrinks it down a little bit. So yeah, they do have room for growth here. I don't know. You know, who knows if Kellogg will grow again, but there is room for growth.
Can I ask, is that number of students, though? You said that, how many students it was?
Well, this was designed, if I remember right, it was...
I gave you that.
Is that elementary size students, though, not junior high size?
Yeah, it was 386 kids.
Those numbers were for.
So I wonder what that number would be for junior high sized students.
Well, I don't know. Jan might answer that. I'm sure we have room for growth here, additional growth. Whether we'll ever get it or not, this remains to be seen. But there's room for growth here.
And that was discussed when the move was made to this building, that we would be able to handle growth in this building if Kellogg was to increase.
We were just very, you know, when we closed this building, we always kept in the back of our mind that this school could be repurposed again. I mean, it was not like it was our newest building, you know. And as it worked out, it came back. That came right back around, and I think it's made a great middle school.
I can tell you it's wonderful to be able to supervise this building. The other building we were in, the heat was inconsistent. There's plumbing issues, there's water issues. And the supervision for the number of staff in that building to supervise kids between class periods, there was no way to cover the library, the cafeteria, the hallway where choir used to be, and the 2 educational rooms. And so when that building was built for approximately 600 students and we had 260 in it, it was difficult to supervise kids.
A lot of hiding places.
There were a lot of hiding places. So
I think Josh can speak from experience. I didn't grow up here, so I didn't know that for sure.
I think I was the last person in this room to go through that.
And talk about growth, I do know, like, if you walk through here when there's kids in the building all day and in the rooms, because I don't oversee this building, but I'm in here, my kids go to school here, or did, both of them, one of them does. All the rooms are filled up during the day. There is no extra room here, but we have room to have a few more kids per room for growth. You know, at 24 kids, 20 to 24 kids average a classroom. You know, you start getting over 30, then you'd be concerned. But there isn't a spare space. And when I mean that, like Jan, I work with kids who need intervention, and there isn't, if your quiet space isn't those 2 resource rooms we walk through, or other kids need a little space for that, There is no quiet cubby, there is no separate space. It's a, that's another, issue in itself. Having additional spaces will help with that, because you really do need to have a space to keep everybody else's class still running and some students removed from certain settings.
And we're excited we're running a pilot with IDLA to offer more courses for our extensions too, for our higher end kids, and making sure they have a place to be. Right now we're running them through the library, which is working fine, but sometimes that room's very busy too, and so they're trying to take their classes and have classes coming in and out to use the library.
Do you have any big classes on the way up, like down at Pinehurst, like large population?
Kindergarten
classes?
is pretty big right now.
And if you look at the projections, our first grade is, I think, in the 70s, but all the other classes are in the 80s. So we should hold steady through that first grade class right now, but then it immediately should stabilize with the kindergarten increase.
What's your biggest grade right now?
Right now, don't quote me exactly, but I think it's 92 in our 8th grade class.
Wow.
And then high 80s for 7th and 6th.
Does that change how you guys have to do things, the size of the class?
We look at those every year, and one said, what about the core? We decide how many sections we offer based on the number in that class. And then on electives, we'll count out every year how many sections of electives we need to meet that class. So right now we offer 22 sections through the day for our 8th grade class because they're larger, and I think it's 17 and a half a semester for our 7th graders.
Do you guys have a hypothetical number for what size of class would potentially throw you off in a building like this?
I think every single class would have to increase by at least 30 if we're using the 380 approximately. So we have plenty of room. I would say for 100 students, we'd be comfortable in growth.
So I just had, the only reason why I asked that about the size difference is because when I came in the last time, I was walking down the hall, and it was tough walking down that hall with all those kids in it, that was the first time I ever recognized that I was in an elementary school with junior high size students. It was like you squeeze through. So I'm wondering like how that.
We had the safety auditor specifically look into that because that was a student when they presented to the school board. They said, if we could fix anything, it'd be the hallways. And so I asked him to pay attention to that when he was here, and he said it's regular flow. It's not a safety issue. He compared it to other schools, and he said,
the kids here have just never been to a school with real students. Like where, I taught at Coeur d'Alene High, 2,000 students.
Exactly.
Same size hallways.
That's what the hallways are like. It's just how it is. And do you run any alternate bell schedules by the grades? Because that's one way to alleviate that if you do have growth. That
our 6th and 7th, our 6th grades on a completely different schedule except for 6th and 7th hour. So that contradicted. So periods 1 through 5, they're on a different bell schedule. And then 6th and 7th hour, they are in electives, and we give a common prep to our 6th grade teachers then.
And how about the cafeteria? I know you're running 3 sections now, and I'm sure that's why, because you can't fit them all in there at one time. But would that growth in the cafeteria would we still be able to accommodate that?
We would still be okay. We actually could run only 2 lunches if we wanted to. We selected to run 7th and 8th grade separate this year. We have 1 staff member on duty, inside and out. So that was something we looked at over the last couple of years.
Flipped, right? It's
They're
not
just
really
flipped.
The first group goes outside and then they eat. And the second group does the same thing. So they're still on the same, those
Bell
2
schedule.
grades are on the same bell schedule. They just alternate.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of neat because kids, actually, we find out that kids, no matter what age they are, they're pretty resilient. It's amazing
They
how
really are.
they can make some adjustments and stuff, and what you think might bother them, whether they're saying it or not, they seem to kind of adjust into it and go with it, So, yeah.
And I will say we meet with the students.
308, like that over 300, like what's going to happen? It already seems, tight, but.
Right. And we'll
That's all
just
I
look
was
at it. And it's a good observation. Kids will tell you that if you hear that.
I don't
so
have
that's why I'm speaking.
So I don't,
Okay. Well, I'm telling you
I don't hear any of that.
But that, we pay attention to those things. If students are complaining about something, we'll run a focus group and talk to them and then ask questions. And then when we do have safety inspections or have other people in the building, we'll ask them to look at that.
Are there certain time periods where there's heavier traffic in certain areas, like hallway, than others, or?
Not really. First through seventh periods, 7th and 8th grade are on the same schedule. The one time is when we do add the 6th grade into that mix, so it might be the switching period between 6th and 7th hour. That's the only time where everyone's in the hallway at the same time. And we do have then band here, choirs right down the hallway on the left-hand side, and some art classes on the Any other questions in here? Okay. We can go to the 7th and 8th grade hallway.
We have an awesome headband, girl. Our headband is where it's at.
I got a bed list like a mom to get my shot.
I know.
Probably back when Buffalo was still.
70s. Moving around.
Do you remember?
In the 70s?
I don't know.
I got you, Art.
And then probably add to that I was probably
He loves hanging out with little kids.
So does Bill. I was telling him I see your dad all the time. He's a fan at those games.
That's why.
Find something that comes like, looks like it.
So this is our choir and drama room. We're very fortunate. Joy Pursoon has really personalized it for herself. And plenty of space. We do have 60 students in this room during one class period. We have 7th and 8th grade choir together. She makes it work, does an amazing job.
Good ventilation?
I know.
There's a door. No.
Is at the end of the day?
It is at the end of the day. Well, it's 5th hour. Close.
So what's going on with the room over at the community center now? Do they still?
Right now, I think Tina Head Start, Nancy, that's using that room.
We have Head Start renting out part of that complex, but the big auditorium part is still open.
Even Start, who's or like.
It has all of
between
Joy's
infant,
stuff in
toddler,
it.
and preschool, so families
Yeah.
who have students needing special services, kind of between things. Rented the space from us, but I don't know
That auditorium room is
how
really
often
cool.
they're in there. They're not using the whole room, just Joy's like old office and a couple other spaces in there. And they come in from the outside.
So Josh should ask a question about storage too. A lot of her things are still stored over there. And we'll walk through here. This is our art and drama storage where art is standing. So we can walk through there if you want. That's
where we store art.
Art.
Just get back in the room, Art.
There's a lot of storage at KMS.
Yeah, so this is our storage.
You'll see there.
That back in that drama room, because I remember in drama in middle school, there was like what, 4 or 5 different
They
rooms
do.
down that
Yep.
hallway that's already
that
attached to itself. No, I was in drama. I mean, maybe I did during a performance or two, but still all about drama.
Yeah.
That's what. So all the organization.
Everybody wants to be behind you, Nancy.
I wonder why.
We were very strategic on the size of the lawn. I mean, we spent hours.
Oh, it's getting warm.
So this is an example of our 7th grade science and art room. So it's a combined, Janelle Fisher teaches out here. She is so resourceful. That's why you see more stuff in this room. She will not throw away anything and make it work for an experiment. But this is an example of our science room. We do run science.
And Janelle teaches art too?
She teaches science and art, yes.
I recognize the tables from Bill's.
We did. We brought these with us from the old middle school.
Were these ones that were in Lisa Cheney's science room?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably some DNA.
It's probably etched in there, but we're not
Probably.
sure.
See, Karen, this is Josh's moment now. I got last week, this is his.
I actually never went to school in this building. I the Christian Academy during the 4th and 5th grade when this was open. So,
Oh.
one of those kids.
So we all stay here.
So we'll have one more stop. We're going to look through the administrative offices. So Tim wants you to pay attention to that. So when you discuss Pinehurst next week, is it Pinehurst next week?
I don't know what it is, but
It can be an
just look
example.
at the office complex and how that's set up and the different offices where there's psychologists and just how that works, because then when we do tour Pinehurst, kind of go back to this building and the difference in, what 40 years will make and what the functionality of a building is. But, they just have a lot of nice spaces and rooms, and Pinehurst is not that way. So this would be something that we kind of like to